Good evening, all. As it is now 7 o'clock, I'd like to call the special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for June 17th to order with a roll call vote.
Commissioner Evans.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Saborn.
Present.
Commissioner Svoboda.
Here.
Commissioner Straka. Here. Commissioner Weber, here. Commissioner Grund.
Here. First order of business is public comment. For anything not having to do with tonight's agenda. Comments from the commissioners? Hearing none and seeing no public, we'll have none from the public. So that brings us right into new business, which is a discussion for a proposed text amendment to Chapter 62 zoning to add electrical vehicle charging stations. As this is a case for a proposed text amendment, triggers a public hearing, so can I have a motion to open that public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Evans.
Aye.
Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Commissioner Saborn.
Aye.
Commissioner Svoboda.
Aye.
Commissioner Straka.
Aye.
Commissioner Weber, aye. Chairperson Grund.
Aye. Lydia, we'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate the special session. I'll try to make it brief. I did give you an additional draft of the zoning code that has the red sections that were added after we had already published it to include additional items, which I'm going to go through. But just as some basic information here, this text amendment complies with our sustainability plan. It's part of the EV readiness program. It's also compliant with state law, which went into effect January 1st of 2024. We are also incorporating it in our new permitting process as we're going through this process. If you haven't checked it out, check out the new electric vehicle webpage that we have on the website as well, as we're kind of preparing all of this. This all started with the mayoral caucus, and we were picked as the third cohort to participate in the mayoral caucus. As part of that, we had certain homework and certain things that we had to accomplish, which is the checklist that's attached to the staff memo. And staff has worked really hard with Xander, one of our interns, working overtime on this to accomplish all of the different goals for us to be able to achieve bronze status. We've accomplished 14 out of the 16. The last one that we haven't, the last two that we haven't accomplished is actually having a text amendment. As you know, we're in the middle of a zoning code update, and then also having flex parking as part of that, which is included in this zoning code. So the parts of the zoning amendment that we're looking at is classifying accessory use, purpose statement for why we have it, and then establishing definitions. So as you can see in the definitions, there are 3 additional ones that we added, which were recommended by the mayoral caucus. These are the bare minimum items that we do have to have in the zoning ordinance. As you know, the zoning code is going through an update right now. We anticipate Camille is going through the draft comments right now. We anticipate she'll have a draft ready by the end of June, beginning of July, and then that'll be open for a public workshop that we're scheduling. So at that time, if additional items need to be added or we need to tweak it, it can certainly be done at that time. For purposes of this, we're trying to get this passed through so we can add it onto the board agenda on the 23rd, and then we'll be fully compliant with the mayoral caucus, and we'll be able to receive the bronze certification at the awards ceremony in August. So the 3 that have been added is EV capable, the definitions EV ready, and then EVSE installed. The additional items that are in there is the parking requirements. So that's one of the items that had to be added, that developers can request a reduction of required off-street parking spaces up to 10% if parking requirements exceed 25 spaces and corresponding EV chargers are built. And then the second one is the accessory use. They're permitted in all districts with L1 and L2 as accessory use. And then the addition that we added after taking this to the committee of the whole was that we can add it to multifamily for L3 accessory use chargers. Any questions so far? This is just an example of the standard charging power levels. So we're looking at the L1, the L1, level 1, level 2, and then the DC fast charging. And that's just more for your benefit. Yes.
I have a question about the
Sure.
parking requirement. So, so that would be 10% off of the parking requirement. And would that include the spaces that would have the EV chargers? How would that be factored in?
That would include that. For example, with the plan development that we just had with McDonough and Conmara LLC, like they received the credit for having the 12 bike spots. If they had the additional EV charging stations, that would be an additional 10%. And I don't have the calculation, but that could be applied in that situation. And this is for all new construction. So we would have the downtown for the theater and 3717 Grand. That would be the new construction where that could apply. And then also for the new Congress Park development that's coming.
And that would be 10%, one space for every 10%, or 10% off for each charger?
That's a good question. I don't know if it's 10% for each charger. I think it's 10% total.
Total? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be 10% total as it's written in the ordinance. Any other questions?
I guess I just have one concern with maybe the idea of stacking the parking incentives between bike and EV chargers.
Oh, and not having that?
I just bring it up only because in my time in dealing with developments that have come forward, again, parking is always the biggest concern. No one ever talks about most anything else when the development comes. And while this is a good thing, and I support it, a developer can easily stack those and start to see an even larger reduction. And this one's interesting because we can say a bike takes a car out of the mix. This one doesn't. This one
Right.
says, we're incentivizing you to have a car, electric, to have
put in
in
there,
this
sure.
area. And so maybe it sends a bit of a mixed message.
That's certainly a limitation that can also be addressed. This is just the rudimentary, zoning code that we need just to get this through with the mayoral caucus. There might be additional items that would fit or not fit for Brookfield. So as we were kind of looking through all this, we wanted to have all the requirements in there, but also not make it so stringent for developers that are newly coming in, because we have a couple of these developments that are right there.
Yeah.
But that's a good point. That could be limited.
Go ahead.
Apologies.
No, go ahead.
Commissioner Evans, very good points. Very good points.
The only thing I'll add is that it is for developments at 25 cars or more parking.
Right.
So those are pretty big developments.
Right.
So I think, I don't know how many parcels of property can be, maybe at Congress Park Station where we're accumulating some property there.
Right. Congress Park and
Here
downtown.
too at the Triangle, right?
Here too at the Triangle, but those are really, and then also keep in mind that by state law, we have to, provide conduit for future electrical stations anyway.
Right.
Period. So, yeah,
I'm there with the idea. It's just the incentive side, I think.
Are we comfortable with the percentage?
well, 25 cars, 10% is 2.5, and I assume you'd round down, because that's kind of how the code is, so you'd have 23 spaces instead of 25?
Right.
Yeah. And if it's 30, you'd have 27 instead of 3.
And this is the
I mean, yeah,
recommendation
it's the
directly from the
30.
mayoral caucus. It wasn't an arbitrary
Right.
number that we picked.
Again, I wouldn't look to not see this go through as written. I just think that we should probably, as a board, again, maybe somebody would think differently, but as a board, we should probably have answers for when these things are stacked on top of each other and people question it. And, it's for progress. That's a good thing. And Chuck brings up a great point that, where this could occur is pretty limited in town, so.
Any other questions? That concludes my presentation. As you know, it's for the certification that'll be approved by the end of June. And it does align with state law and our recent EV initiatives. And you'll have an opportunity, I'm hoping in June, we'll have the workshop, so you'll have a full opportunity to review it again once that zoning code is made public.
Any other questions by the commissioners at this point?
No.
I would ask the public, but I don't see anyone, so, now I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing, and open up further discussion to the commissioners for, this case to, discuss the proposed text amendment to chapter 62 zoning to add electrical vehicle charging.
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Evans.
Aye.
Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Commissioner Sabon.
Aye.
Commissioner Svoboda.
Aye.
Commissioner Straker.
Aye.
Commissioner Weber, aye. Chairperson Grund.
Aye. I don't have anything to add. Anybody else?
I do not.
Said my piece.
I'm excited to see that we're doing this. Thank you for all your work.
You're welcome.
Yes, question? Could the board see the rest of the checklist, but when they're reviewing this full zoning code update? I think the ones that are here are just what's required for bronze.
Oh, the
but
one
there were a
for,
lot of other things
for gold
that
and,
could be considered,
yes, absolutely, we can,
if you wanted some extra EV reading.
Wow, exciting.
we can definitely provide that. Bronze is just to get our foot in the door.
I know this is too late,
Oh,
but there were just some things that I had seen in the proposed draft of the ordinance that I had some questions on. One, which was for the electric vehicle charging station definition. Not sure which one it is on the most current draft that you had provided, but in the first line, it says equipment designed to safety supply. I think that should be safely supply.
okay. And this will go through another vetting process for the actual ordinance.
And when it comes to a permitted commercial or manufacturing district, what would be an accessory, or what would be the primary permitted use? Or what would be an example of a primary
For
permitted
commercial.
use?
You mean for commercial or industrial?
Correct.
I don't think I understand the question. As far as the level 3 charging
Correct.
stations?
So like this would just be like accessory to a grocery store, accessory to a.
Right.
Because I'm thinking of even a step further where what if there comes a time when gas stations are a thing of the past? What about like standalone electric gas stations? You know,
Well-
like, is that something that we would want to add as perhaps in the beginning, a special use, and then once we have something that's established as far as guidelines, that eventually becomes a permitted use, but in the meantime, establish a standalone electric charging station as a special use?
Regardless of which level it is? That's certainly something that can be looked into. I would imagine that, a decade from now, this is all going to be changing in terms of the use of it, and certainly whether it's privatized,
I just don't
whether
want to be caught
governments-
off guard if somebody
Right.
walked in the door and said, hey, this is what I'd like to propose. and
Right.
We're like, how do we want to address that?
Right, and those are fair questions, certainly, that it can be modified and added to. These are just the basic requirements that the mayoral caucus gave us to start with. I think there could be limitations. There's also the big debate, is this going to be privatized? If it does, all of this is completely going to change. This will almost be obsolete. So it just kind of depends on what Brookfield's comfortable with in terms of what requirements we put on it.
And have they come up with any kind of standardized or universal plug yet? Or are these still different plugs from Tesla to Chevrolet to Ford? Are they?
Look how long it took
Is it like Apple and,
I bet
think-
trustee Kaluzny knows.
I think Tesla's the only one that has the special plug, and that all the others listed here would be something that's common between others. I know there was some discussion at the board level about not having DC fast charging at a single-family home, because that seemed excessive. And that's why multifamily and commercial was included there.
Right. And even the multifamily, that's an extra for Brookfield, because realistically, it probably won't be added on a multifamily home because they're intended to be at like a grocery store or bigger units, and unless we're going to have a huge development that's going to come, that's probably not going to crop up.
that's all I
Any other
had.
questions?
Who'd like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion
Go ahead,
to
Chris.
to recommend approval for the text amendment to Chapter 62 zoning to add electrical vehicle charging as per the staff report.
I'll second.
Commissioner Evans,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Saborn,
Aye.
Commissioner Svoboda,
Aye.
Commissioner Straight
Aye.
Commissioner Weber, aye. Chairperson Grund.
Aye. Thank you all, as this is a special meeting. We had no minutes to review from the last meeting, nor do we have anything else. So unless, Libby, you have anything, nothing was on the agenda. that
No, I
she's
don't have anything further.
prepared?
Do we have a regular meeting this month, or has that been canceled?
No, that one's been canceled. The next meeting's July 24th, and so far, there's at least 2 items on the agenda with a potential third one being added.
And has there been any conversation with Castle Motor?
Barely. There's been several conversations for the coffee brewery.
Great. So with those final comments, do I have a motion to adjourn the special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for June 17th, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Evans.
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Saborn,
Aye.
Commissioner Svoboda,
Aye.
Commissioner Straight
Aye.
Commissioner Weber, aye. Chairperson Grund.
Aye. Thanks all for a very efficient meeting. And for those that have not been down to Ogden,